In this week's lab, what we are going to do is start to work on a web page. Okay. Now, if you've taken the web design class, you'll know what that means. If you haven't, it could be a little bit different. But even if you have taken the web class, I'm going to do a different approach with this. We're actually going to use, instead of just a straight up text editor, we are going to use Dreamweaver, which actually at its heart is a text editor, but it'll allow you to create the content, your website, with an interface to a large extent. I'm going to try and avoid as much coding as possible. If this is an area where you have more interest in, you would probably want to take the web design class because I get more into what the actual code means. But I'm going to avoid that as much as possible, just because I want to try and give you guys something new, as well as I want to angle this more towards our visual people and less towards like straight up coding. Although the coding is actually not very complicated. So we want to make a website. A website is actually just a file folder structure, and so you have like a root folder, and then you have folders that are sub folders in that hold documents, and you have documents in there as well as your images and what have you. So that's what we are going to make first. I need to make a folder. So I am just going to go ahead and on my desktop, I'm just going to do a new folder, and we'll just call this cone_site. Okay, you just do your last name site, and that's where we're going to put our web page. That's all you need to do to start. All right, next thing I want you to do is you're going to need to open up Dreamweaver. So you should install it. It's part of the Creative Cloud Suite. You've already installed, obviously, XD and probably Photoshop and whatever have helps you. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and start working on that. So before I even start, I want to just set that my site is, that the root folder is that site. So we're just going to do that. So I'm just going to go to site, and we're just going to do a new site. You can also do manage sites. There's an option for new site there too. So we're going to do new site, and we'll say site. We'll just call it cone_site. So I know where it is, and I'm just going to go ahead and select that local root folder, which I put on my desktop, called cone site. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm saying if you make anything, I want you to save it to that folder. So any subfolders or anything that you need to make, they're going to go there. And this is just its own thing for in here that it will create it. Okay, so we'll hit save. That way, if we have multiple projects, they'll show up. So just to give you an idea, if I go to site up here and I go to manage sites, you'll say I have one. But if you have other projects you're working on, you'll have a whole list of them. And we can just say, oh, I want to work on this one right now. Now I'm switching projects. And that way it knows, like, when it's looking for files or if it's trying to save files, it's going to save them to that. I'm just setting the like default save location, if that makes sense. And you can import, and you can also just click new site here. Okay, so I'll just exit out of that. But just so you get an understanding, that's what that is. All right. Okay. So I'm going to show you the interface and that sort of aspect, but let's just kind of get right into it. So we're just going to go ahead and create new. You know, see file, create new, create new. It's going to give you this nice little kind of thing here. Now, we're not going to do this now, but in the future, if you were so to desire, they do have this section for starter templates. And basically, you'll see basic templates, and it has these little templates, and it makes more or less this design written in HTML and CSS and JavaScript. Okay. They also have ones that are Bootstrap specific, which are probably the ones I would use, not the basic ones. And they have these email ones, and so on and so forth. Okay. But basically, they are just these simple layouts, and then you can put your own content into those and adjust them and what have you. They also have site ones, which I guess we don't have any, so that doesn't really matter. But we're going to stick on new document. Now, web coding, like making stuff for websites, is actually at its core very simple, but as opposed to writing Python or C# or whatever the other ones that I teach, or ActionScript. It's actually very simple for the most part. Most of the technology it's not. Most of the coding language is actually it's much less complex than those. However, it uses more of them. So you have a lot of things like trying to incorporate with this and this one, incorporating that one, and so on and so forth. And that's why you'll see so many here. And it's actually capable of handling more than these. What I want you to do is just select HTML. And then what you're going to do is, it probably says none right now. I want you to actually, in none, just go ahead and call this your last name. We'll say Cone's site. All right. So just like an actual name, you don't have to put underscore. HTML5 is what we want. That's all fine. Now go to Bootstrap, and I want you to make sure you choose create new. You can use existing. What we're going to do is we're going to use a Bootstrap framework. Basically, it is already written code that you reference in order to make your site. What you'll do is say, oh, I want to treat this element, this text, as this, and you'll reference something that's written in Bootstrap, and then Bootstrap will be, oh, this should look like this. So that's why we're using Bootstrap as our framework. Okay, so just tell it to create a new. It just means it's going to make new Bootstrap. We don't need to use existing. It will have this on by default. Just turn that off. We're also not going to deal with this customization, but what I do want you to be aware of is that it is 12 columns, and currently the gutters are 30 pixels, which seems like a lot actually, but whatever. And these are when the screen turns to small, medium, and large, and extra large. So these are our stopping points. If for some reason you're making a site and you do want to change these, you can, but for our intents and purposes, this will be fine. Go ahead and create. And it's going to make this a blank sheet. Before I go into this, I just want to show you one thing real quick. No, thank you. I'm going to minimize this. If I open up this, you will see that it already made a CSS folder and a JavaScript folder. And we will eventually need a third folder called images. Those are the 3 basic folders that you need, and then we will make other things inside them. Inside of those, it added this Bootstrap CSS, which is more or less just a long thing of code, and some Bootstrap and Bootstrap necessary JavaScript documents as well. And now those are being referenced to our site. Okay, so just be aware that your website is not going to be the single document that we're making. It is the entirety of what this folder is. It's very important. It's not just one document. It's many documents all working together to make what you see. Okay, so this is the Dreamweaver interface, and it keeps having these little pop-up things. Okay, so Dreamweaver at its core is and the thing that probably separates this from most other text editing software is that this is called a Wysiwyg. What you see is what you get. Okay, that's why it's Wysiwyg. And what that means is that as I write things over here, all right, don't do this, I'm just showing you. You will see it shows up here. And I can also write stuff here, and it shows up down here. Okay, so it's instead of just writing it straight up as code, you can kind of go back and forth between a visual way of working and a textual way of working. So I'm just going to remove those 2 things. That's its big shebang. Okay, now I'm going to try to avoid this as much as possible, although I am going to explain a little bit of it as we're going because it's sort of needed in order for you to understand what's happening. But this is our visual component, and this is our text. Okay, so if you want to look at just text, you can click up here, and it'll show you just the code view. And I can actually see my other bits of code that are attached. Okay, so you see that JavaScript, 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 and then Bootstrap CSS. And then here's our source code. This is HTML. Okay, we haven't saved it yet. You can see a little asterisk. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but programs, they'll have a little asterisk if it did something you didn't save it yet. This is where we're going to be doing all of our work. So just be aware of that. All right, now you can do split, which is what you currently saw, and you can do live, which is just the live view. There's also design view. Sometimes you'll see that. Basically, design is the old way of working. It's less accurate than live, but sometimes live will be janky and it doesn't refresh correctly. So what I would suggest doing is if now and then if you do something that doesn't look quite right, try to just do this, go design, and then go back to live and see if it reconfigures itself. Okay. Now you might not like this way of working. I'm actually not a huge fan because I feel like it's difficult to see. But you could tear off tabs, and if you have 2 monitors, put one on one side, one on the other. That would be probably the best way of working. You can also change the way this is. So for instance, I can go to the where are you? Code view option. Where are you? Split right here. You can do split, and I could do, see how it says split horizontally? If you change that, it's going to become, that's weird. Let's try that again. Split. Oh, here we go. Split vertical. It used to be only one checkbox and go back and forth. So you can see here and here. So I usually prefer working this way, but it's not how people are going to be viewing it. So we'll leave it the way it is because I'm going to mostly work visual anywho. So we'll leave that on that. Oh, you can also change, if you so desire, what's on top. Where are you? Split. What's on top and what's on bottom and what's left and right. Okay, so just be aware you can do that with the view. Yeah, so you can also do other view things here. Yay. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. On the left here is a toolbar. You'll notice that it's kind of different depending whether I'm in code view, split view, or live view. Pretty much it's worthless. I don't really use that at all. It's not, it's there. These aren't like, this one's like open document. Like, do I need that like right away? I could just do file open, right? Or like expand all, file management. See how they're not anything that you would actually use. So this is just worthless, but that's what that is. That's the toolbar, just like you'd have any other toolbar, but it's not what you think it is. Okay, so that's what that is. File, save, export, import, what you would typically expect. Edit, copy, paste, that sort of thing. Again, we expect view, deals with things with viewing. Insert, we can insert our stuff using these things here. So basically, these are the HTML as well as some Bootstrap and other elements that will give you some fun stuff. For the most part, though, I can get to these using this insert tab, which right now, go ahead and switch to the insert tab. This is just a better way of working because you can kind of just click on it as opposed to going up here and clicking down and drag, it's like sub menu stuff. It's the same thing, but that's just what this is. Tools, kind of like this, where they're basically not helpful at all. External JavaScript and external, and that's actually sometimes useful, but it's not. And you can also externalize, move the CSS rules and stuff too. So this isn't very useful. Find, I don't use either. It's just your typical like look for a word. If you've ever used any other text editor. Site, you just saw what we did with that. That deals with just overall. And then window is probably kind of helpful just because if for some reason something gets messed up, you can always just go to workspace layout and just reset standard. Okay. So if for some reason you pull a tab off or you're missing something or it gets weird, just go workspace layout, reset standard. And if you've used other Adobe products, you'll know that that's something you can always do. That's pretty much always available. So you should always remember that. Most programs now, actually, even besides the Adobe, are helpful in that case. Most of what you see here, these are just panels that you can open up. Most of them you'll see are actually over here anywho, except for properties. I don't think properties is over there. And we will probably use properties a little bit. That'll make things a little bit easier. But that's what this is for. So you get the idea. Yay. And then, okay, so over here, we have our panels. And these are kind of like the extra panels that have other things in them, like for file management. We're not going to use the libraries at all. Insert, CSS Designer, we could possibly use, which basically deals with the design elements, coding, colors and such. Probably we'll have to use that a little bit. And then down here are more panels. So DOM, Document Object Model. Basically, everything that you create, every bit of text, like, if you're in Word and you have like a heading, you make that the heading, that will be one object. And then you could have like a paragraph of something, that's another object. Then you have a picture, that's another object. This is showing you how basically the elements are parented to each other, nested. So that's what that's for. Assets, if you have stuff in there. Snippets, leave it on snippets. Actually not going to use this too much. What ones do we have in here? Is anything good? Yeah, most of this we can get through the insert. So leave this on insert, leave this on snippets. The only one I'm really probably going to use is this lorem ipsum, which you guys are probably familiar with that. So that's what that's for. These are just extra panels, and you can put other things in there. But mostly we're just going to use these two, probably CSS Designer as well. Last thing you'd want to do is this. So I'm going to save this real quick, and then I'll show you what to do. So if I don't click on this. If I click on this right now, it'll be like, you need to save it. So let's just go ahead and save it. So I'm saying Control S, or you can do File Save. You're going to notice it goes right to that folder. It knows right where to save it. And what you want to do is you want to save this as index.html. Okay. So the reason why we save it as index is that means it's the home page. Whatever website you go to, the landing page, the page that you show up on, is called the index. So that's why we're going to call this index.html. It is our home page. It's the first page we should go to. We will make sub pages, but it'll be index.html. And then go ahead and hit save. Okay. Now you'll see a little asterisk is gone. That means it's saved. Now, if I click on this, what it's going to do is it's going to preview. It's going to ask you if you have any of these already installed, and then you can test them. Generally speaking, you're supposed to test them on multiple browsers. but we'll just test them on this. So if you look, you can see it says preview, blah, blah, blah. So what's interesting about this, what it's actually doing is it saves it to the cloud, and then you're actually viewing it through the internet. It's not locally showing you this, it's showing you from this IP address. And there's some advantages to that. Basically, it'll let you know if it takes a really long time to load up, because obviously you'd have to download it just like a user would. It's going through the internet, which, also if there's any kind of weird troubleshooting that might happen. The other neat thing with this is that it is possible to preview this. So you could take this and preview it on your phone or your tablet. Just type in that IP address. There's actually, let's see, preview on device. And you can go ahead and you can, see, I don't have it hooked up. Usually I thought I had a QR code. Device preview service unavailable. It's weird. Usually there's a QR code, and you can actually put your phone and you can click, take a picture of it, and then it will open up the page for you as well. So which is particularly useful for web design, because obviously we're trying to make something that can be viewed on a monitor, on a tablet, on a phone. There's multiple devices and aspect ratios. So that's what that's for. So every now and then you want to click on that. Even though we get a preview here, this is not accurate. This isn't actually what you are going to get. This is their idea of it. It will look different in the web page, trust me. It should be close, but it will look slightly different. So just be aware of that. So we have all that good. Save that. What we're going to do in the next video is actually start, putting some stuff in.